Welcome to the Hotel California.
So it's my pleasure to now present this year's Robert Sinton Award for Distinguished Leadership. This award is given every year to an extraordinary leader in our community in honor of Robert Sinton, a remarkable community leader and philanthropist whose dedication to the Federation and Bay Area organizations span more than 5 decades. I want to first, before I roast David, no, I'm not going to roast David. I want to first acknowledge the past winners of the Sinton Award who are here. Sissy Swig, Dick Rosenberg, Ron Kaufman, and Adele Corvin. Today, I'm here to talk about David Friedman. As I told you last year, everyone in this community is a cousin of mine. But David is special. He's related not once to me, but twice. He is both a first and a third cousin. In other words, a 1/3 cousin. Our grandfather, Daniel Koshland, married his first cousin, Eleanor Hawes. Please don't ask us to take off our shoes. I could regale you with many family stories about David. One of my favorite is about David throwing a marble at his sweet brother Bobby, who happened to be sitting on him. The marble missed Bobby and shattered a plate glass door in their house. David's father, after the usual parent lecture, asked David, "What do you regret about this incident?" David very earnestly responded, "I regret that I missed him." At least we know that David is very honest and very determined. David has many interests, including traveling. He's been on every continent, with trips to Antarctica and the North Pole. He has other hobbies like collecting wine, and the loves of his life, his female white Labradors, Lucy and Della. But I'm not going to regale you with family stories or the details of his many interests. Instead, I'm going to talk to you about David's leadership qualities. David's leadership trajectory started early, learning from family role models. Our grandfather, Dan, was a business and civic leader in both the Jewish and non-Jewish worlds. David's father, Howard, was a leading architect, very active in the Jewish Home, the ACLU, and other social justice organizations. Most importantly, he taught David how to play golf and how to write poems and perform poems at family events, which he's very good at. David's mother, Phyllis Friedman, has been a very humble funder of many organizations in the Bay Area. His wife, Paulette, has been a contributor to women and anti-poverty causes for many years, and she and David have carefully managed their philanthropic mission and donations. They have been true partners in this activity. They also have set a Guinness World Record for playing a zillion games of Scrabble. I will not tell you who has won most of the games. David has taken much from these role models and has taken on leadership roles in many spheres. David has been a structural engineer, specializing in earthquakes for over 40 years, and has been one of the mainstays of Pharrell Essesser, where he served as president for over 10 years. He has been intimately involved with many projects in the Bay Area, including seismic refitting of San Francisco City Hall, Cowles Memorial Stadium, go Bears, as well as San Francisco MoMA and his recent work with Temple Emmanuel. But David is not an ordinary engineer. He is the Wilkes Bashford of the civil engineering crowd. No nerdy pen shirt holder for David. Instead, he wears beautifully matched ties, jackets, shirts, belts, and shoes. Moreover, you should see his unbelievably perfectly aligned drawers of socks and underwear. Now we got to get a little serious. Now I want to talk about David's involvement in the nonprofit world. David, unlike his dilettante cousin, carefully selects his involvement on nonprofit boards and concentrates on 2 to 4 at one time. David has been elected to a leadership role on almost all of these boards. Notably, he's been chair of the boards of the San Francisco Foundation, the Jewish Home, and SPUR, San Francisco Bay Area Planning and Urban Research. I decided to interview the CEOs of these three organizations when he was chair. Their comments about David were very consistent and contained the usual adjectives for a good leader. Thoughtful, hardworking, level-headed, and a deep level of caring and integrity. But actually, to be serious, they pointed out three things about David that I think make his leadership special. First, they said David has the rare ability to both live and breathe the mission of the organization, while at the same time graciously steering the board members to focus on higher level issues and not micromanage the organization. They further complimented him on his deeply respectful treatment of the staff. Second, they all highly valued David's spunk. David has that ability to be persistent on issues he cares about and be willing to stand up to others. The best example of this spunk is his dogged pursuit of social responsible investing at the San Francisco Foundation. Many experienced business leaders, including our cousin Warren Hellman, opposed this approach, but Dave persisted, and ultimately the foundation started doing PRIs, or program-related investments, which has been a very successful and innovative endeavor for the organization. Lastly, they all praised David as the best chair they've ever worked for, and could not come up with anything negative about him. How annoying. How very annoying. So I asked his children, his son Max, his daughter Meryl, and his adopted niece Kate, to give me a more rounded assessment of David. Unfortunately, they refused. They would not give me any dirt about David. So in conclusion, I guess David is perfect. But more importantly, David has made truly significant contributions to many organizations in the Bay Area and is an extremely worthy recipient of this year's Robert Sinton Award. Doug Sinton, Robert's son, will now join me on stage to present the award to David. Doug and David, please come up. Is that nice enough?
That was too nice.
Aye. All right, who'd rather be playing golf? I saw some hands, yeah. Oh, you so don't want to be here. It would probably take me 60 minutes to thank all of the folks that have guided me, mentored me, inspired me. Luckily, you're all in the room here. When I learned about receiving this award, I was resistant. And then I decided that I'd threaten to name names for all of the people who are responsible for why I am up here. I do want to thank the Jewish Community Federation for this recognition. It is especially meaningful to me that this award is not only for my work within the Jewish community, but also my work within the broader secular community. I also would like to thank the Sinton family. This award is very meaningful, carrying the Robert Sinton name. Bobby was a family friend, a golfing buddy, and even a Greek island traveling companion. I so admired and shared his commitment to community, his passion, and his compassion. And I want to thank the nominating committee, whoever they might be, for naming back-to-back family members as winners of the Sinton Award. Maybe next year you can be a little more creative. Or not. I am truly blessed by family who are also best friends. And I am blessed by friends who I now consider extended family. I need to start with my immediate family because it is their collective imprint on me, which is why I'm standing here today. A grandfather who so deeply believed in social justice and civic engagement. He believed his own engagement in community was really only for selfish reasons, because he met the nicest people. A father who was committed to the care with dignity of frail elderly, to the Jewish home, to civil liberties, and to the ACLU. To a mother, who I could spend 60 minutes on, dedicated to social welfare and poverty alleviation, and to me, someone who exemplifies philanthropy with a capital P. I only worried once when she came home when I was in high school, where she was counseling unwed teenage mothers and said, "David, have I met a gal for you?" A brother who is the godfather of the asset building movement as a pathway out of poverty, and a rock star of the individual development account and the children's savings accounts. A sister who has championed women's reproductive rights, social justice in Israel with my brother-in-law, Jonathan, and a long tenure in stewarding a modern dance organization. And last but not least, my wife, who was an early adopter of women's microenterprise development and a champion of women's equal rights, economic development, locally, nationally, and internationally. And she is my go-to resource for all matters fundraising and board governance. With that family lineup, what choice did I have? But community engagement wasn't a tough sell. Tzedakah, Tikkun Olam, Lador Vador. Charity, healing the world, generation to generation, are all infused in my DNA. My activism is fueled by a Jewish means justice ethos, and believe we cannot draw a boundary around the consciousness of equality and fairness for all. It was my mother and then CEO of the Jewish Home, Jerry Levine, together decided that it was time for me to follow in my father's footsteps and join the board of the Jewish Home. Why? Because I knew so much about geriatrics and aging. But I said yes. And it was an important first step for me. I said yes 22 years ago. So much for term limits. But every time I was due to term out, they seemed to have a governance meeting, created a new board, and then asked me to chair it. And I said yes. Kind of in truth, so many of the nonprofits I've gotten involved with adopt a line from the song Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. And I have to say the feelings are often mutual. I've had literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lunch board meetings and committee meetings at the Jewish Home, where they serve tuna fish and egg salad. And only this year did they realize I don't like tuna fish and egg salad. But I'd like to talk a little bit about earthquake engineering now. Not really. But I'm a lot more interesting about why the Bay Bridge is rusting or why the Millennium Tower is sinking. But the truth be told, I have found a way to mesh my professional career and my nonprofit organizations. And I need to do a shout out to my partners at Farrell Elsesser Engineers because of their professionalism, their patience, their understanding, and their support. In fact, they're just like my immediate family. When I would say I'm heading home, they just assumed I was going to the Jewish Home. The meshing of professional and nonprofit activities really began when I declined to go onto the board of the San Francisco JCC. Instead, I agreed to go on the Planning, Design, and Construction Committee for the new center. Big mistake. It was 10 times the amount of work. Not seemingly having learned my lesson, I agreed to chair the Planning, Design, and Construction Committee for the Toby Corrett Campus for Jewish Life. A little project. not very complicated. But I did serve on a board called the TKCJL board, where my cousin Jimmy was the chair. And I learned the skillful tactic of being able to chair a controversial meeting and still check your email at the same time. I didn't really need proof that my grandfather was right, but I did fast discover that you not only meet the nicest people within these organizations, but they are also the smartest and most dedicated and most passionate people around. I've had the honor and privilege to be involved with some extraordinary organizations: Friedman Family Foundation, San Francisco Foundation, the Jewish Home, SFJCC, JCF, JCEF, UC Berkeley Foundation, Hope SF, Spur, ERI, and Build Change. Now, I said that very quickly because my mom and wife constantly asked me how many boards I'm on, and I refused to answer, so I did it fast so they couldn't count. What all of these organizations have in common are amazing people, both professional and lay leadership. I have learned so much from some of the best and the brightest: Sandra, Fred, Gabriel, Daniel, Danny, Danny, and Dan, Nate, Abby, Phyllis, Jimmy, Susan, and Susan. And of course, again, my mom, my brother, my sister, my wife. I am not sure that I really can accept an award for distinguished leadership when all I really do is grab onto all these people's ankles and hold on for the ride. It really is a case of having learned far more than feeling that I have contributed. But it is not often, but when I do need a reminder of why I do what I do, I simply walk the halls of the Jewish Home, or drive by a revitalized Hope SF neighborhood, or visit an earthquake retrofitted home in the mountains of Nepal. It is then easy to muster the energy to continue on. I am extremely grateful for this award and recognition. With thanks and humility, I will use this as impetus to continue on. And I do so knowing that I will be fighting the good fight with all of you for a fairer, more just world, and one that's somewhat seismically safer. With great appreciation, onward. Thank you.